start with, the idea, which is the most important aspect of writing, the idea has to be strong enough to make that person feel inspired enough to start writing that particular book.
Coaches, trainers, experts, and training businesses all have some key knowledge and insights to share. So, how does one know when they are ready and the time is right to finally write a book?
Well, I believe every single human being has a story to tell and a book in them. It's a matter of when they're ready to share that story or if they're ready to share it at all. Authors know pretty much very early in life that there is this compelling need to communicate and to share their story. Now, when that need becomes almost unbearable, like a pressure that's exploding out of their heads, that's when the book starts to germinate. And for some writers, the book can be germinating inside their heads even for a decade. And for others, it can be a week or even 2 days when it's like lightning strikes and they just can't stop themselves. They rush to their laptops, or if they write longhand, they rush to their writing pads. And to start with, the idea, which is the most important aspect of writing, the idea has to be strong enough to make that person feel inspired enough to start writing that particular book.
So, the first step is done. That is inspiration and action of sitting down to write the book. What comes next? How do you plan the actual writing of the book? Is there a checklist you follow?
Well, it's very important to start with commitment. To me, the C word pretty much says it all. And then there's the D word, which is discipline. Because writing a book is not a walk in the park. You have to commit so many hours of your time, so many hours of your entire work life to do nothing else but actually pour yourself into the book. And that is something that a lot of writers don't have the consistency. They lack that discipline. They look at it as a short term fun thing to do. I'm writing a book, and hey, isn't that cool? But you can't see your entire book happen with that kind of a very casual attitude, or your something that's not committed enough to the project, which is the book. So there is a checklist. I start generally with an outline. The idea is the most important one, as I mentioned earlier. So once you have the idea in place, you kind of define it for yourself before you even pitch it to a publisher. So to do that, you make that checklist that this is my story, or this is my nonfiction subject, and this is how I go about it.
Once you've decided, you've written the book, then how do you test the market to see if the book idea or the topics are good? I mean, do you do research? Is there, a strategy in place?
Well, for a lot of writers, they undertake a full on marketing exercise. They test market it, they do it online, they put up representative chapters or paragraphs and wait for reader feedback. The publishers do it increasingly now. But in my case, it's very organic and I've never done it. I go with my gut feel, and that's for me, that has succeeded all this while. So I would feel extremely distracted if I were to submit something on social media and the responses were completely contrary to my gut instinct or what I feel the book should be about. And if I start getting 50 people saying 50 different things, I don't like this character, change that, do this, the whole story doesn't work for me, it would demoralize me terribly. It would discourage me, and I could possibly abandon the book altogether. So I find it just best to work with a strong editor in a publishing house, and the idea is shared with only that one person, and you have to trust that person, because that person's feedback pretty much shapes the book. As a publisher and editor myself, I would say that 75,000 words, which is already a lot, should be your target. If it exceeds, if it goes, a lot of my books have exceeded, they've gone over 100,000 words, then you do need a good editor. If you've been overindulgent, or if you've stretched a point a bit too much, to tell you that, you need to cut this or maybe we can do away with that character altogether, so tighten the pace of the book. That's a call you take much later. You shouldn't start by obsessing over the length of the book. In fact, you shouldn't start by obsessing over any aspect of the book. You have a story to tell, just go ahead and tell it.
Mhm.
That's my very simple mantra. Don't get bogged down with technicalities. Don't get bogged down by sharing every chapter you write, because I don't do that. I prefer to finish the book, and then only does the editor see the finished book. And then we can make whatever tweak it with the character or with the text in a suitable way, or even rejig the chapters.
So
Yeah.
how can one define their signature writing style? We end up picking up, we name at the end of the day. Like we humans, don't invent much. We like to just copy stuff. So how do you suggest we come up with original ideas in our writing styles?
Well, to do that, you have to have an original mind. You have to have an original idea. And you cannot be crippled by what any other writer in the world is doing, no matter how brilliant that writer is, how iconic. You cannot say, oh my God, I will never ever be able to write Tolstoy like, you cannot. And you can't, and not everybody can write Gone with the Wind. Not everybody is skilled enough to write God of Small Things. These are all very unique books. I mean, Catcher in the Rye, a very unique book. Some authors are meant to write that one defining book, and that's enough. The entire career is built on that one book. But for those of us who are see ourselves as professional writers, we can't really bank on that one idea and that one book. So originality is something that you have to have the confidence in your own mind, in your own writing ability, in your own ideas, and not let your own self inhibit you by saying, oh my God, will it match up to this, or will it match up to that? uh, for all the criticism against him, Chetan Bhagat was an original, and he was so successful because he broke a lot of the rules, and he really didn't care about criticism. He didn't care about pleasing a readership. He created a readership. So that's confidence, and with his banking background and so on, and I'm sure he did enough sort of marketing research before he wrote that first book. But for those of us who don't want to necessarily go down that road, it's sufficient to go with your own idea and believe in that idea strongly enough and write the book and let it find its own level.
A lot of people, when they're trying to do that, they complain that they stumble upon the writer's block. So what is your mantra there?
Well, fortunately, and I'm touching wood as I say this, I've never ever suffered from a writer's block. And never ever in my 50 years have I gone to my laptop, or in the earlier days to my writing pad, and I have a deadline a day pretty much with my columns and so on, and said, oh my God, I'm blank, I have nothing to say, and I'm just going to ask the editor to let me skip that column or something like that. So while I was writing Lockdown Liaisons, for example, I wrote it during the pandemic, and it was 26. I was pretty much writing a story a day at that point. It was a furious, frenetic pace, because that's how the emotional graph for me was unfolding. I had to write them because it was a compulsion. So each writer, I think, comes up with their own way, but there's absolutely uh, no shortcut to daily discipline. That is the mantra. It's overindulgence to say, oh, I'm not in the mood to write. You cannot call yourself a professional writer and say, I'm not in the mood to write, even if what you write, even by your own standards, at that moment appears maybe substandard to you. The sitting down at your work desk and hammering out those 100 or 1000 words, 500 words every single day, it's like an emotional and intellectual workout, is mandatory if you want to call yourself a writer. If you're a writer, you write every single day of your life. It's as simple as that. You don't say, it's my off day and I don't feel like writing.